I'm Adam Graveley from the Future Homes Hub team. If you missed the Embodied Carbon breakout sessions at the Future Homes Conference, or you just want to relive the highlights, you're in the right place. For years, the conversation around sustainable homes has been on things that you can easily see and measure: the operational carbon, all of the emissions associated with heating and lighting your home. But the conversation is pivoting now towards embodied carbon. Catherine Dupre, Head of Sustainability at Carla Group.
If you look at the net zero transition plan that Future Homes Hub have done, and it was put on, Ed put it up this morning on a slide, you'll see that big green chunk. It's the kind of elephant in the room, so we have to take it seriously. Everything else that we're doing, everything to date, has been very focused around operational carbon. Rightly so, that's fine, but we're kind of getting to a point now where we all know what we're doing with that. We might be going at slightly different timescales, but we all we're going to get there. And again, if you refer back to the transition plan slide, we've got that going off a cliff in the sort of orange bit. But if we don't, we have to take it seriously, because it now makes up the big majority of any UK house builder's carbon footprint.
Louise Clark, Group Head of Sustainability at Barclay Group.
I agree. I think we take it seriously because it's important to us as a business in our kind of approach to ESG. We have science-based targets, so that's why we want to be operating and doing the right thing. And embodied carbon now is the biggest impact from a carbon perspective on what we're building. So that's why it's becoming a bigger focus for us and why we should be doing it.
We had two keynote presentations from Emily Lansborough of Ibstock and Annalisa McSweeney of Built by Nature, showing how the supply chain and innovations in the supply chain are already leading the way.
If you look at the brick, it hasn't changed for perhaps hundreds of years. On the outside, you would think a brick looks the same. But if you look in the market now, there are loads of different types of bricks that you can get. There's different perforation patterns, there's different thicknesses of brick. So you can have the traditional 105, you can have a 65, you can have a slip, which might be 30 to 15 mil. You can have a 100% recycled brick, you can have a non-fi brick. There are loads. You can print a brick onto a board and say it's a brick. So there are loads of different options out there, but how you get that to scale is the challenge that we which ones are we backing, which ones does the industry want, where can we do those trials and improve that performance so that we can get to that level of confidence. An investment that we've made at a factory that closed during the COVID period is at our Atlas factory in the West Midlands, where we've rebuilt that factory with new innovative technology that has basically brought the carbon down from 50% by 50% compared to the old factory. So there are huge strides that can be made. We're also working with government and peers on hydrogen for that site, so looking at on-site hydrogen, which would take us to a further 75% reduction against the previous factory, and that could go even further if that hydrogen were to expand to 100% replacement for the natural gas. So the technology is sort of there. It's how we get government support, how we get the right investment to be able to move that at the pace that the sector needs.
And we think that bio-based materials offers a triple climate benefit. As plant matter grows, or plants and trees grow, they sequester carbon through photosynthesis. They store that in plant matter, and if we make that into building products and store it for the very long term, we can create a carbon sink in our cities. And in doing so, we're also substituting higher carbon materials like steel and carbon. So this makes timber a powerful tool for reducing, removing, and storing carbon at scale. Insurance has long been a barrier, but an example of our solution, so our mass timber insurance playbook, has helped shift the market. We're seeing that the insurance market is softening anyway, but major UK insurers are now underwriting timber projects, with some reporting on reduced premiums. Across the UK, we're seeing scalable timber innovations. The Tai Adakeed project in Wales creates a pattern book for affordable timber housing with standardisation across multiple timber frame manufacturers. The new model building proves that mass timber can be safe and insurable, and it received a letter of comfort from NHBC.
So why is that so important for a home builder? The NHBC letter acts as an endorsement for non-standardised materials or techniques like mass timber. It provides assurance of quality and long-term performance, and therefore unlocks insurance and finance. Richard Smith, Head of the Standards, Innovations and Research Team at NHBC.
What's really encouraging is that we're seeing developers looking at new types of development, and I think one of the drivers is the future home standards, and also the ambition to build 1.5 million new homes. It recognises that we can't build all those 1.5 million new homes in the same way that we built our last new homes, really. So we are now seeing that MMC is present on approximately 20% of our sites, which has gone up massively in the last 5 or 6 years. That was about 6 or 7% in 2019. So clearly something's happening there, which would suggest it's a positive market.
But there is an undeniable lack of consumer demand for this. There's a problem of market pull.
If I can be brutally honest, there are 2 reasons why house builders do something. One, because we're told to do it by regulations, the building regulations, or one, because the customer demands it. So if we get customer demand in something, even if it's not in legislation, it will happen. And you only have to look, if I give you a very crass example, but during pre-COVID, if you walked into a Cala 4-bed show home, you would have seen 4 beautiful bedrooms all done up. Post-COVID, you will not walk into a show home now and not see a home office set up somewhere. That wasn't regulation, that was customer demand. So with operational carbon, you can, to an extent, sell it to a customer, and you can get the customer demand because you can talk about cheaper bills, cheaper energy bills. This will be a lower cost home to run. They kind of get it, that there's a bit of a tangible thing that they can see. With embodied carbon, it's really difficult. How do you sell the value of that to a customer? You can talk about environmentally friendly materials, and I do get the point I think you were making about the healthier, absolutely, you know, timber, and people maybe get that, but it's a really difficult thing to sell to a customer.
So in most markets, consumer demand drives change, but consumer demand for low embodied carbon homes is almost non-existent. You can't effectively sell the value of embodied carbon to the consumer. It's just too abstract.
We are increasingly asked for data about embodied carbon, which we're increasingly able to supply. So EPDs are getting more and more common across the sector.
Environmental Product Declarations, or EPDs, are the standardised document that quantifies the environmental performance of a product.
Don't really know yet how that information is used, and it certainly isn't reaching the buying decisions. So we're not able to feed back that confidence into the business to be able to say, we know they want lower carbon products, they're proving it by choosing with their feet. If you were to ask me if you can have a lower carbon brick, I'll say, well, yeah, here are our range of bricks and this is the lowest carbon one, but very, very few customers ask that. So we're not able to feed that back into the organisation and say, this is where the demand is, this is where we need the investment, and here is the evidence to give us the confidence to do that.
So we have this conflict between the technical readiness and rapid technological innovation in the sector against this profound lack of customer demand. We know how to solve the problem, but the customer's not asking for the solution. If the market isn't pulling, how do you overcome the risk of being the first one to jump? So we have a market failure. The solutions are here, but we're stuck in first gear. In polls conducted during the breakout sessions, better measurement was ranked by the audience as the most critical need. Yet the current system is a paradox of too much and not enough.
The burden of the data requirements on the supply chain are quite intense. So EPDs are definitely becoming more prevalent, and larger businesses, so we've invested in someone to do all of our EPDs and be able to do that, but for smaller businesses it's a huge, huge challenge. And also because innovation is moving at such pace, the clumsiness of an EPD is just awful, because if you're incrementally improving a product, then your EPD is almost immediately out of date. So the data is just a bit of a nightmare.
There is so much complexity in the measurement, and we need more consistency. We need to agree it across the industry, but at the same time we can't let measurement stop us from acting and making decisions on how we actually get the right products, the lower carbon products, into at the right stage. So we need to do it, but it needs to be at the right scale so that it doesn't stop us making decisions on what to put into our buildings and our homes.
So for me, I look at measurement in a slightly different way. I look at measurement in saying how do we ensure that the products that we are putting into new homes in particular are durable and fit for purpose as well. So we get a lot of inquiries with products that can't evidence their long-term performance and durability. I think it's really important to remember that this is probably the most valuable asset that someone will buy in their lifetime. So we have to make sure that whatever we do is durable and homes can last for a long period of time.
Practical, industry-wide data failures are stifling product innovation and actual purchasing decisions. So policy must intervene. Regulation and financial incentives are crucial.
We need to have embodied carbon limits and regulation. We need to have fast-track planning for low-carbon buildings. We need targets for bio-based content in public procurement. And we see very valuable lessons from Europe. EU climate laws mandate a 55% emissions cut by 2030. And as a result, national governments have set their own kind of pathways. France's RE 2020 requires whole life carbon assessments and bio-based content in their public buildings. Amsterdam had a 2025 target of 20% for new homes to be built in timber. So these policies are really driving innovation and supply chain development.
The supply chain sector really needs clarity and commitment from government to support on that decarbonisation journey. So where is the gas network that we're going to move from natural gas? Where is that industrial hydrogen coming from? How are we going to finance that? And that will really ensure that we're not offshoring carbon and not offshoring our UK manufacturing. So that's a really crucial point from a supply chain sector perspective.
There was a genuine financial incentive that said if you can prove that the home that you are buying is lower carbon both operationally and you brought in an embodied carbon element, that would increase the demand. That would mean customers were asking for it, and it would incentivise us to do it so much more. So yeah, I mean, if we could crack the customer demand in this, it would change the market. Yeah.
What has come out for me out of the response to the question has been that there is quite a high level of positivity and optimism that we can actually achieve these objectives, which slightly surprised me. I thought people were going to be a little bit more balanced than that. Early next year, we're going to be establishing an embodied carbon implementation board that I will be the co-chair of alongside someone from industry, which will bring together all of the key stakeholders in this area so that we can work collaboratively to facilitate the reduction of embodied carbon across the whole life cycle of the construction of new homes.
While the challenge of tackling embodied carbon remains immense, the feeling within the sector is surprisingly optimistic. The path forward involves not just decarbonising the supply chain, but also fixing the systems around it. That means creating smart policy to provide certainty, simplifying data so it can be used effectively, and most importantly, finding a way to engage with the home buyer. So with that in mind, the question for all of us becomes, if you could see the hidden carbon footprint of your next home, would it change the one you chose to buy? Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the new year.